Hello and welcome to BBC News with me, Luquessa Burak. Start in the US, where President Joe Biden has said that he is in good health and the best candidate to beat Donald Trump, despite occasional mistakes in an almost hour-long press conference. President Biden was speaking at the end of the NATO summit in Washington, which saw countries agree tens of billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine, accused China of enabling Russia's war, and pledge an irreversible path to Ukraine's membership of the alliance. But the focus was on Mr. Biden's performance, with continued questions over his age and his ability to stand for re-election in November. He told reporters he was there to finish the job.
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out. For the longest time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so what I'm doing is, and I've been doing, I think we've done over 20 major events.
But there were gaffes, including this moment when he referred to his Vice President, Kamala Harris, as Vice President Trump.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President, but I think she was not qualified to be President. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
And earlier in the evening, there were gasps as the president introduced Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky as President Vladimir Putin.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President,
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
Well, it was hoped that amongst supporters at the solo press conference would put an end to conversations about President Biden's candidacy, but more members of his own Democratic Party continue to call for him to stand aside. Our North America editor, Sarah Smith, was at the event.
President Biden didn't exactly have the best start to this press conference. At an event immediately before, he accidentally called President Zelensky of Ukraine President Putin, and then he quickly corrected himself. And at the very beginning of this event, he accidentally talked about Vice President Kamala Harris by calling her Vice President Trump. So everybody was a little bit nervous about how this was going to go. But I have to say, over the course of what was then nearly an hour of taking questions, there were no other slips like that. And President Biden was discussing in depth the situation in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, his domestic economic policy here in the United States at great length on some occasions. And he was asked again and again about his fitness for office, if he was really up to the job, and whether he will consider dropping out of the Democratic race. And on that, he was very, very clear. He said that he thinks that he is best placed to govern and best placed to win this election, and that's why he's going to stay in the race. He was asked, well, what if he was shown polling evidence that said that Vice President Kamala Harris could also beat Donald Trump? He said, well, he wouldn't drop out then either unless he was shown evidence that he couldn't beat Trump. And he said that he certainly hasn't been shown any polling that says anything like that. And he laid out why he thinks he is the best candidate. He said his years in the Senate gave him the experience that allows him to get things done, that he's proud of the legislation that he's had passed already, but he wants to finish the job. And that with age, he said, comes a little bit of wisdom. So he was actually trying to make the case for why he's not only able to win this election, but would definitely be the best president afterwards. Now, that doesn't mean that all of these questions about whether he's going to stay in the race or not, how many other Democrats might call for him to pull out, I don't think that they have been completely answered by this event tonight, but he certainly hasn't damaged himself in any way.